There were a lot of doubters when it came to USC football going into this season. There were many media analysts out there saying how this team was going to be a dumpster fire. They might not even win 7, 8 games. And with them getting out to a 2-0 start, they smashed Utah State as expected. They got a really good win against LSU. There's a lot of reasons to be optimistic about the trajectory of USC football and how good this team can be this season. And right now, I've talked to a good amount of people that bet a lot of money on, teams that can win the conference championship. They put a lot of money down on futures bets. And a lot of people keep asking me, JT, do you think USC can win the Big Ten this year? I believe they can. You got a great defense. You got Deanne Lynn, who right now is proving to be probably the best defensive coordinator in all of college football. Remember, last year, in the span of 1 year at UCLA, he took that defense from being one of the worst in college football to being a top 15 unit. And look what he's doing so far at USC. You can't say, oh, this defense looks good because they're playing nobodies, when this defense was allowing teams like San Jose State to put up 20-plus points on them on offense. So this defense couldn't even stop below average opponents last year. So with how good and how improved USC looks defensively, it's not far-fetched to see this team at least making it to the Big Ten title game. Oregon, who was a lot of people's pick to not only win this conference, but win it all this year, they barely beat Boise State and Idaho. That's concerning. Those aren't just wins that you say, oh, yeah, it's going to get better with time. They got some fundamental problems on that offensive line and defensive line. USC, on the other hand, they're not struggling to beat teams that they're expected to beat. Against Utah State, they just outright just dominated those boys, just completely blew them out of the freaking water. And Ohio State, we know of Ryan Day that he is one of the better coaches in college football, overhated if you ask me, but there are certain games where he does get out coached by better coaches. And Lincoln Riley, we seem to have forgotten that last year was the worst season he ever had. 2023 was the only year that Lincoln Riley didn't have double-digit wins. He's been to the college football playoffs numerous times. He's developed several Heisman Trophy winners at quarterback, several first overall picks in the NFL. Lincoln Riley is one of the best overall coaches in college football. And we know that USC is always going to be good offensively with how good Lincoln Riley is with that side of football. The only problem has been fixed, and that's been the defense. And look at USC's schedule. Realistically, how many teams can you see them losing to this year? They play Michigan in 2 weeks. They're going to smash Michigan. Michigan's defense is good, but they don't have an offense. Now that USC has a defense, they could beat Michigan at home the same way that Texas rolled Michigan in Ann Arbor. Wisconsin, Penn State, those are winnable games. Lincoln Riley is more trustworthy in big games than what James Franklin is. James Franklin has one of the worst records against top 25 teams among active FBS coaches. He's like 4-16 combined against Michigan and Ohio State. You can't trust little games James Franklin when he's going up against good teams. Maryland on the road, that's a win. Rutgers, Washington, those are winnable games. The toughest games that USC has to play this year are Nebraska and Notre Dame. You don't have to play Oregon. You don't have to play Ohio State. They got a pretty favorable path to get to the Big Ten championship. And let's say they do end up playing Oregon. With how Oregon has looked these first 2 weeks of this year, I would take USC to win. They look better defensively. We already know how good their offense is. If they were playing Ohio State, I would be 50-50. I probably would lean Ohio State, but I would leave that game alone from a betting standpoint out of the respect that I have for Lincoln Riley. He's won numerous Big 12 titles. He's been to the college football playoffs before. He knows what it takes to build a good program and to sustain it. And right now, with the momentum that USC has, I would pick them to be in the Big Ten championship right now. As far as them being a playoff team, they definitely could be one of the teams to get in this year. I don't see them winning no less than 9 games. I said that before the season. I had them at 9-3. At best, they could be 10-2, maybe 11-1. You know, with how difficult this schedule is, it's hard to see them not having a bump or two along the road, but it's definitely manageable. I mean, you got to play Notre Dame at the end of this season. They lost to NIU. I don't trust Marcus Freeman in big games neither. So I'm really high on the Trojans as far as their chances of making it to the Big Ten title and being able to win the conference. Right now, if you put your bias aside and you just be honest, who have been the 2 best teams in the Big Ten right now? Ohio State and USC. And you can say that Ohio State hasn't played anybody, but Oregon hasn't played anybody as good as what they are, and they barely beat Boise State and Idaho. Penn State survived Bowling Green at home. Right now, you got to give credit where it's due, and Lincoln Riley's doing a phenomenal job at USC so far this season. And with the addition of DeAnne Lynn, I really believe that was the missing piece to USC getting back on track and being the program we believe they could be when Lincoln Riley first took this job. His first year at USC, they won 11 games, and that was supposed to be a rebuilding year for them. That shows you how good of a coach this dude is. To me, he's the best coach in the Big Ten right now. I'll take him over Ryan Day and Dan Lanning and James Franklin in a heartbeat because he's proven more than what those coaches have. The only thing that Ryan Day has over Lincoln Riley is that he's been to a national championship. That's about it. But look at the program that he inherited from Urban Meyer. Just like how people talk about how Mark Stoops gave Lincoln Riley a tailor-made program at Oklahoma, you can say the same thing about Ryan Day at OSU. And I really think that Lincoln Riley has a better resume than Ryan Day because look at the amount of quarterbacks and the amount of players that he's gotten drafted into the NFL. He literally is quarterback U. There is no QBU as a school. QBU is Lincoln Riley. You want to get drafted to the NFL, you want to be the Heisman, you want to be a future #1 overall pick, you go play for USC under Lincoln Riley's coaching.